Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the biology of what has to be one of the strangest creatures ever cooked up by evolution. We're looking at a complete anomaly of nature, an animal that basically looks at the rules of survival and completely ignores them.
So get this, how does an animal the size of a literal car survive getting eaten alive, right? It sounds straight out of some weird biological horror movie, but for our subject today, it's just a regular Tuesday. Just try to imagine being this massive creature, getting chunks literally torn off you by predators, and you barely even fight back. Why on earth would that happen? And how does a species like this even exist in the first place? Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out.
To really wrap our heads around the scale of this mystery, consider this number, 2,000 kilograms. That's over 4,400 pounds for those of us counting. The ocean sunfish is literally the size and weight of an SUV, but despite all that massive bulk, it behaves like absolutely nothing else its size in the animal kingdom. The real kicker here is figuring out how something so exceptionally huge can be so incredibly, almost comically, vulnerable.
Section 1. Anatomy of a drifter. Let's get right into it.
So this giant of the sea actually struggles to just swim properly because its anatomy completely defies all the conventional rules. I mean, think of the fastest, most agile fish you know. They all have those powerful sweeping tail fins, right? Well, the ocean sunfish definitely does not. Instead, evolution decided to hand it this strange, chopped-off stub called a clavus. And honestly, it basically just acts as this rigid, super poorly functioning rudder.
Because of that weird clavus, it doesn't exactly gracefully slice through the water. Actually, scratch that. It's more like it drifts awkwardly through the ocean like a giant, broken dinner plate. And because their swimming is just so incredibly inefficient, these guys get overpowered by strong currents all the time. Those currents will actually trap the sunfish right at the surface of the water for hours on end, leaving them helplessly floating completely sideways under the burning sun. Now, here is where it gets totally baffling. Most fish out there have a pretty logical survival instinct. If you get attacked, you swim away, or you fight back. But the sunfish, it literally just drifts forward and barely even reacts. We're talking about situations where fierce predators, like actual sharks, are tearing literal chunks from their bodies, and the sunfish just keeps drifting. It's wild. While pieces of it are actively being eaten, it shows this almost terrifying lack of any survival instinct.
Which brings us to Section 2, Predators, Parasites, and Plankton.
So you're probably sitting there wondering, how on earth has an animal this ridiculously defenseless not completely disappeared from the food chain? I mean, it faces a whole list of compounding indignities. It's got a remarkably tiny brain compared to that enormous body, practically zero active defense mechanisms, and this super strange rigid bone structure that literally prevents it from ever fully closing its mouth. Oh, and its skin? It is essentially a living, breathing parasite infestation.
But get this, there's actually a hilarious twist of evolutionary irony that saves them. Their flesh tastes absolutely terrible. It is so notoriously unappetizing that most predators, after managing to take a few bites out of this giant drifting dinner plate, will just spit the meat back out in total disgust and swim away. Honestly, their overwhelmingly bad taste is literally their greatest armor.
However, while the sharks might totally hate how they taste, parasites absolutely love them. A single sunfish can carry dozens of different parasite species at the exact same time. It's like their skin is its own bustling ecosystem. And it gets so intense out there that seabirds have actually been seen landing directly onto their floating bodies in the water. They basically use the sunfish as a giant biological buffet, just pecking the parasites right off their skin.
So think about it. With a rigid mouth that can't even close, and a clumsy body that definitely can't hunt down prey, how do they even eat? Well, their diet relies almost entirely on, you guessed it, drifting. They slowly move through the ocean currents, basically acting like these giant slow-motion vacuums. They survive mostly by just passively swallowing jellyfish and tiny plankton that happen to accidentally float right inside their permanently open mouths.
Moving on to Section 3, a 45-million-year survivor.
Okay, by every single biological rule of survival out there, this incredibly flawed, heavily predated animal should have gone completely extinct millions of years ago, right? Yet the ocean sunfish has somehow been around for 45 million years. 45 million! Despite having no active defenses, lacking a proper tail fin, and working with a tiny brain, it has somehow managed to survive for absolute eons. I think this just beautifully illustrates the stubborn truth of the sunfish. You see, their survival isn't rooted in strength or intelligence or some cunning predatory tactics.
They've survived not by being powerful or super smart, but simply by refusing to disappear. You got to admit, there is something almost respectable about just stubbornly existing, even when absolutely every biological odd is completely stacked against you.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. By every rule of survival, this thing should be extinct. So is the ocean sunfish evolution's biggest mistake, or is it its greatest loophole? It really forces us to completely reconsider our entire definition of evolutionary success. Because, sometimes survival isn't actually about being the absolute fittest or the fastest. Sometimes it's literally just about tasting terrible, drifting forward, and completely refusing to quit. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I hope it completely changes how you look at the bizarre, unpredictable